I love that I recorded this episode with surrounded by like my 4 different Metroid amiibos that I have on my desk.
Oh, that's cute.
I have like 2 Samus, a Metroid, a Ridley.
So when I make this the cold open, tell the audience, how old are you again?
I am 13 years old.
And welcome back to another episode of the Games Gone By podcast. It is Sunday, August 17th at the time of this recording. I'm your host, Adam, and joining me as always, the gaming expert and enthusiast and Metroid veteran, Austin. And of course, Jeff, returning again, more of a Metroid newbie. Am I getting kind of the vibe here right with you guys' experience in this franchise?
I have never played a single minute of Metroid until the last 505 minutes on my Switch.
Meanwhile, I think I've played Fusion alone like 3 times. So I've played pretty much every game in the Metroid series at this point, I think.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I thought. I beat Super Metroid. It must have been 20 years ago now, so I really don't much remember it, and I haven't much played one since. So I'm probably more in Jeff's camp than Austin. Now, Austin, I know this was actually the first Metroid game you ever played, and I know this because you wrote a companion blog post about it on our brand new website, gamesgoneby.com, and you should go check it out.
Woo! Yeah, I'm very excited to kind of get my writing chops back. I used to write a lot, and I thought a website would be a good place to kind of flex that muscle a little bit and write some blog posts. So I'm going to try and do companion pieces for a lot of our things, and my movie reviews are on there too. I write movie reviews on Facebook all the time. So there's some cool stuff to go see down there. Go check it out.
But yes, today we are discussing the 2002 action platformer, Metroid Fusion. This would be the 4th Metroid game released, or tied for 4th, because it actually released on the exact same day as Metroid Prime for GameCube. Do you guys remember how you could have the little link cable to your Game Boy Advance and like hook it up to your GameCube? Because you could apparently get cool stuff in Metroid Prime if you did that with Fusion.
Wait, you could plug the handheld Game Boy into the GameCube?
The Game Boy Advance specifically.
There's like a little cable that you could, I think like Crystal Chronicles made use of that, where you could play like 4-player Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles using the link cable. I don't know. GameCube's a weird system, guys.
Wasn't there an entire Zelda game that was like the 4-sword adventures that you had to play that way?
Yeah. Weird system.
Man, I entirely missed this. I thought link cables were exclusively for trading Pokemon. Like, why else would you need to connect a Game Boy to anything?
I do have to imagine that comprises like 99% of their actual use, yeah.
That's why most people use them. But I did not know this. I didn't know that you could hook up until I read your notes. I was like, oh, I had no idea that Fusion tied into Prime at all.
Yeah, I don't think it went the other way around. I don't think there was anything to get in Fusion, only in Prime, but... Editing Adam here. In just a few seconds, we are about to misspeak horribly. Indeed, it is the case that Yoshio Sakamoto directed both Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion, and the gentleman that Austin is trying to remember is Gunpei Yokoi, who is a producer on Super Metroid, who tragically died in a car accident in October of '97. Sorry for the mistake. Thanks for listening. This was developed by Nintendo Research and Development Team 1, because they all have names like that over there, and this team is the one that made Super Metroid. The director was not the same guy who directed Super Metroid, however. This was Yoshio Sakamoto. He said that he wanted to make a new game instead of a port of Super Metroid, as the GBA had kind of become notorious for just releasing a ton of early Nintendo ports. Like, this was something like 50% of the library when the console first launched. Even the EGM review for this game was complaining about, like, all the GBA is just Super Nintendo games again. So the director really wanted to kind of do a brand new Metroid experience. The lead programmer was even talking about how, like, we didn't even look back at previous Metroid entries for programming help. We actually looked at Wario Land 4, which was the game that the team had developed right before this for Game Boy Advance. So I found that interesting. Austin, this seems like something you might know more than either of us. Is there kind of a history of this sort of thing at Nintendo, where you have these teams that stay together a long time and work on these products, but it's like the director shifts every time?
Yeah, I do believe, and I don't know for sure if this happened before Fusion came out or not, but Gunpei Yokai or something like that, I believe, is the guy who directed Super Metroid, and I think he died in a car crash after releasing Super Metroid. I don't know if that happened before or after Fusion, though. So that could definitely explain why there's a new director on it, if that were the case. But they do have a history of like I think all the Mario games have been developed by like one team. Like it just feels like it's the same core team, and then they'll like swap in directors here and there. So that is definitely a thing that happens over there.
Speaking of car crashes, you should read the GameFAQs reviews for this game because there were some people who, back in 2002, were not happy with the sort of shift in this game. And one thing a lot of people would complain about in these reviews is the soundtrack. Because apparently Metroid was just very Super Nintendo, very catchy, a lot of melodic noises. This was a lot different. It was composed by a woman named Manako Hamano, and she was actually notable for Link's Awakening, which was the Game Boy Zelda, like the Game Boy Zelda. And she also worked with the guy Akira Fujiwara, who would later go on to do Super Princess Peach, which is a game that I did not know existed until I wrote these notes. I don't know if you guys have heard of Super Princess Peach.
It came out like a year ago. Or no. There was a Switch Peach game. I don't know if that's Super Princess Peach though. Super Princess Peach might be a DS game.
Super Princess Peach is a 2005 platform game for the Nintendo DS.
Yes. Okay. So I do.
Okay, gotcha.
I do remember this when it came out. It was controversial to say the least. I think most people who played it was like, "This is not great."
Well, apparently these people can only make controversial soundtracks because this one... But I really liked this one. One of the things that Manako was saying she was going for is that like she didn't want the exploration music to annoy the player, which she thought was kind of becoming a danger in this series, and she wanted these rather ambient melodies that kind of matched the atmosphere of the game. And, this game definitely has a little more of a like darker horror thing going for it at times than the previous ones, although all in all it is still, at its core, a bright action platformer. Austin, you played this like when it came out, or was it years later?
I played it probably like mid 2000s, so a couple years after it came out, but definitely like still in the time range. Like I didn't play it 10 years later or whatever. I probably played it like 2005, 2006.
Okay, yeah, and the critical reception was very well received, though. I actually recently kickstarted the like EGM Compendium online database archive thing, which has been really cool to go back and read the old EGM articles about these games that we've been doing. And this one got a 9, a 9, and a 9.5. And one of the things they kept talking about were like the tight controls. Which we will definitely get into later because I don't know if we all had quite that experience. But then overall, kind of the narrative that they brought into this one that really wasn't present in the other Metroid games. And I think the big complaints amongst the critics were just that the game was kind of linear and short, which is not something that you were used to with the last 3 Metroid games, but it does seem to have been overall well received. And even the fans really overall we're happy with this. I mean, I think the vast majority of those GameFAQs reviews were like 8, 9, 10. But there were a lot of people complaining about the same things over and over, which was the linearity, the soundtrack, and just the kind of lack of exploration and length that I think a lot of people had gotten used to. So why don't we go ahead and get into some of that gameplay? Because ultimately, I think that is the core of these games, right? Despite the fact that this one had a narrative that it brought in, which was a new thing for this series, it is all about jumping and shooting and blowing up blocks and exploring. Austin, would you say that this one felt like a vast departure from other ones you've played, or does it still, more or less feel the same despite those differences?
No, I think at its core, this is still very much a Metroid game to me. Like, there are some changes that are made, and I think the linearity is probably the biggest one, and I can understand why that's such a controversial take. I had kind of gone back last night a little bit in preparation for this and played a little bit of Super Metroid. And even in those early moments, they drop you into the world and it's like, that's it. Go figure it out. Like, they give you nothing. There's no direction. There's no guidance. It's just land on the planet and figure out what doors you can open and how you can get through them.
Austin has just described the exact reason why I've never played more than 20 minutes of Metroid Prime.
I would argue Super Metroid is possibly even worse than Metroid Prime. I mean, it is like there is no piece of dialogue, no tutorial, no instruction. It's just land on planet, go explore. And I think this game definitely focuses you a lot with its narrative and its kind of direction, because there's a computer AI voice that's talking to you that Samus names Adam after her like previous commanding officer. And that voice kind of guides you through these areas. So it's definitely a lot more focused than those other games, which is something that I think I probably gravitated towards when I was growing up, right? I mean, I played this game probably when I was like 10. So playing it at that time, I think having that focus, that guide, kind of telling me where to go and what to do, helped me discover and figure stuff out. Whereas, like, when I tried to play Super Metroid way back in the day, I had no idea where I was going. I was constantly lost. I was like, this isn't for me. So I can understand its controversy, but I think it makes it a lot more accessible to kind of have that linear focus. And I think the action is a lot tighter in this game than it is in Super Metroid.
I certainly found the narrator helpful. Like, if I had been dropped into a giant map and I had to just explore that entire map to get through all those boss fights and get out, that wouldn't have happened. As like a full-on adult man, I needed a narrator to guide me through the space station here. Otherwise, I might have put this game down very quickly.
I sure came close to doing that a few times because despite the narrator, there are at least like 3 or 4 points in this game where I ran back and forth between 4 or 5 rooms 100 times, and I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And then you would go look it up, and it's like, oh, it may seem like it's a series of blocks you're supposed to destroy, but actually there's just a fake wall right here that you can roll through. And I was like, fuck off. Like, I hated that. There was at least 3 times where that was the case. Now, I will say, overwhelmingly, you just shoot around and you'll eventually blow up a block and walk through it. I kind of figured that out after a minute. But there was just 2 or 3 parts where it was like, or there's like a vent that's the same color as the background. And the guy's just like, no, just keep walking to the left. You'll walk through the vent. Like, oh my God. So that was really frustrating. But I think overall, the narrator helps a lot.
Yeah. I don't think that I wouldn't call it like bad game design, but I definitely vividly remember the first time that like there's just a hidden like rollerball passage that if you slide along the left wall, you will wall grab and then pull up into, and you just have to figure that out. I don't know. Am I supposed to rub myself up against every wall in every corridor? Like how am I supposed to make progress?
I mean, controversially, I think yes. I do think that is what the game wants you to do. Like,
my God.
I think that's just Metroid though, because right. I remember while we were kind of discussing this early, Adam, you had mentioned that you felt like Super Metroid wasn't that bad with the hidden blocks. I can definitively say that you're wrong.
So even for the main path, like not just bonuses, but like the main path?
Like even in the main path. Like playing it yesterday, I was like, God, there's so many hidden blocks in this game.
Yeah, you could very well be right. Like I said, it's been 2 decades, so maybe Metroid's one of those games that I beat when I was 10 because I could deal with that, and now I would just quit.
I
think that's just I think that's just a staple of this franchise. That's just something you have to look out for, is like a lot of the exploration comes in with searching through the rooms and finding the hidden paths, right? They're there. You just got to look around.
Look around? It's more like you have to interact with everything, right? I actually thought it was super cool. Like the first time I realized that like parts of the environment were like destructible, but not obviously destructible. But I swear, like the first few times at the very beginning of the game, there are like visual graphical cues to like try and invite you to notice that something is different about these blocks. But then like 20 minutes later, you have to drop some bombs and blow up a portion of like a balcony that looks identical to all of the walls that are completely invulnerable to everything. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, actually they're just hiding shit. And now I'm playing like Where's Waldo in my action shooter video game. And I'm very confused.
I think that's one of the things that Metroid does extremely well, though, is kind of its almost its organic tutorials. Like it doesn't really tell you how to do things very often, but there was one specific moment early on, like right after you get the bomb, that really stuck with me. And it's just you get the bomb, you like see some patterns on the wall that look like you can blow them up, but you can't do anything with your missiles or your charge beam or anything like that. So it's like, okay, well, I have to use the bomb I just got. You blow up the hole in the wall, and it's like perfect. So you go to the next room, and there's like a pattern of blocks that's like, okay, these are obviously bombable. But then you get to one where you try and blow it up, and it doesn't explode. And you're like up against the wall, and there's like a ledge, and you can't jump yet. But when you bomb it, the bomb shoots you up. Like there's, it's the Metroid bomb jump, and it like kind of boosts you up. So it's like, okay, so now it's taught me how to bomb jump because I went to do this thing that I thought it wanted me to do, but it showed me this other option. So now I have a new option and a new tool. And of course, you get the morph ball jump like shortly after that, so it doesn't come in handy super often. But it's like, I thought that was really interesting how it very naturally showed you what to do, because it's like you had no other option. And I think Metroid does that a lot throughout the game. So like early, it shows you some like visual cues of, okay, there's hidden blocks. And then it's like, okay, now you're thinking for the rest of the game, I bet there's a hidden block somewhere. Let me try and find it.
And this game has very good design in that once you get an ability, you then have a lot of opportunities to use that ability. And like you're saying, Austin, it will train you to understand like the new capability you have unlocked, and that is good design. I think where it lost me is that like it makes it real easy for you to use it a couple of times and then immediately takes the training wheels off, and now suddenly it's just like random. It feels a little bit like random bullshit when I have to figure out which invisible part of the wall and which ability I need to use to actually like make progress through a corridor.
I could not figure out the consistency of like, sometimes you'd shoot a block and it would reveal itself as with a symbol like, oh, you actually need this to blow it up. But other times you would shoot the block and that just wouldn't happen, but it was still something that could only be destroyed by like super speed or whatever. And that drove me fucking crazy. There is this one hallway where it's really long and there's a ramp on either side. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess you're supposed to like speed and jump off of it. But there's no way to reveal the like blocks on the upper left side that you have to jump through. Without maybe like a super bomb will do it. And the super bombs definitely, or what is it, power bomb, helped a lot with all of these unbreakable blocks, because it got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm just going to drop this in every room I enter to see if there's blocks to break. And this is way less annoying than pew, pew, pew every direction, of which I have to use like the left shoulder bumper, but only if I want to aim up. Then I have to point it down with the left shoulder bumper. Like, that was really annoying to me. And as soon as I got the power bombs, that whole aspect of the game became like less annoying.
Yeah. We could talk about the aim a lot too. I did not enjoy the way directional aiming works, but we'll stick on this topic of randomly moving through the environment, because I also, as soon as I got the power bomb, I was like, well, I'm just going to use this all the time. Thank God I can finally stop rubbing myself up against every wall. Yeah. Not that I spent that much time doing that. Pretty much, I think I put 4 hours into this game, and then Adam posted a walkthrough guide, and I spent the rest of my playtime reading almost every sentence of that guide. So let's see, who is the author of this this guide? Metro Fusion walkthrough dude on Omega Metroid. You are my hero.
Omega Metroid, amazing website if you are looking to how to beat a Metroid game.
Yeah, don't unless you're really into Metroid already, don't play this game without going to this website.
I was about to say, I guess this is really interesting to hear, because I feel like I'm normally like the bad gamer who doesn't know how to do stuff and like really struggles with the game because I'm terrible at all video games. And I mean, it definitely helps that I've played like all of these games and I'm very familiar with the genre. So like, I understand why, but like I did not seem to have as much trouble getting through some areas, both from like a combat and an exploration standpoint. And some of the exploration stuff just came back to me because I've played the game before. So like that's understandable. But I feel like y'all struggled with the combat in a lot of spots too, that I feel like I didn't have as much trouble with.
I think I just lack the patience for this kind of game. I just kept running into things because I didn't want to fucking shoot them, because I never found it remotely interesting on any level to shoot things in this game, except the bosses, but like not the regular enemies.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as Adam, is that I just didn't find the mechanics as engaging. I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think I can describe this game's core gameplay loop. Like I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing repetitively that gives me good payoff. Can you describe that, Austin?
I would say the loop of all Metroid games, this one included, but it is to explore areas, find new abilities, and then utilize those new abilities to get through previous areas more efficiently, and then open up new areas to continue that loop, right? Find a new item and progress through the world using that new equipment.
Maybe it's just because it's a 2D side scroller or something, or I don't know. I don't find the exploration engaging. I find it contrived. I'm like, oh, it's a goddamn corner over here I was supposed to roll into after shooting a missile on my right axis and speed jumping through it or whatever. That did not engage me.
I missed so much, apparently. My item completion rate was 39%. And I was like, no, dude, I powerbombed every single freaking room. I shot every goddamn corner. I started shooting the diffusion missiles everywhere. I have no idea how I missed that much. And I'm just kind of with Jeff on that. It's because there's just a bunch of contrived arbitrary rooms in various places.
Yeah, I think that's another reason I had such hard time with the combat is that I have like 1/4 of the health I'm supposed to have. I'm fighting all these enemies that do like half an energy tank of health, and I only have 5 energy tanks. So like I have to make it through between 2 entire save rooms without getting hit more than 7 times. It was a struggle.
As a Metroid veteran, I'd tell you that the solution to that is to go find more energy tanks.
But I don't want to spend my time humping walls, so...
But you don't. Like, I feel like the map is pretty good at showing you just enough of where, like, you can see a room that ends and then paths that are kind of around it and think, like, okay, there's probably a hidden path somewhere through here. I mean, there were plenty of times when I just pulled up the map and I was like, okay, if this room looks like a dead end, but... based on all the other areas, I bet I could open up like a green path if I found a hidden block.
Hey, what's the green path versus the purple path on the map? I never figured this out.
The purple path is what the navigation room will show you. Like the purple path is what the map data shows when you go into the navigation room and it opens up the area and like gives you the base map. When you fill out the base map, that's purple. The green is the hidden paths that you have to find around them.
Yeah, it's like known versus unknown rooms.
Right. So Super Metroid does something similar, I found out, but it doesn't actually differentiate the color. So it's just like hidden stuff becomes the same color as the previous areas that you've now known, and I hated that when I went back to Super. I was like, oh, Metroid Fusion distincting those two helps like keep in mind of like, okay, there's no hidden path coming off of this room. I should probably go check and see because there probably is. There's almost always a hidden path in most rooms. Like it's so if that's not engaging to you, then that's not engaging to you. Like sure, but that's what the game wants you to do.
So
yeah, I get that. I understand that's what it wants me to do. I think what confuses me so much is that the appeal of a platforming shooter to me is to like run around, go fast, blow things up. Like I want it to be like exciting and action oriented. When I have to pull up my map to like think through the puzzle of how the rooms are aligned, and like God, nothing is more frustrating than like looking at your map, seeing that a place exists, but you just have no freaking idea how to get to it. And then actually you have to jump down like 3 stories and like blow through some walls and go all the way around to get to like that spot that you wanted. It just really takes me out of the action a lot. Did you feel like that at all, Adam?
There were definitely times, yeah, because like what Austin was just describing, where like, oh, you could look at the map and kind of figure out where some of these things were leading you to. Yeah, I definitely found that happen sometimes, and it was satisfying when that did happen. But man, maybe half the time at best, I found a lot of them were just like, no, if I hadn't just dropped 3 super bombs in this long hallway, I would have never found this thing. So it just depended on the segment. Some were way worse about like, I do not understand what I should be doing. I'm pulling up the map every room constantly. So yeah, that just varied a little bit. Austin, have you played much of this subgenre gets called Metroidvanias? Have you played other ones besides the Metroids, or have you mostly stuck to Metroids?
Oh no, I never played a ton of Castlevania. I've never played a ton of the Vania part of the Metroidvania. Okay. But I have played a lot of the like newer Metroidvania genre, and strangely, I can't think of many of them off the top of my head. But
Ori is the one coming to mind.
Yeah, I've played both Ori games to completion. I played the Prince of Persia: Lost Crown that came out recently. That was very Metroidvania heavy. I've played a lot of them. If you named them, I'd be like, yeah, I'd probably played that.
Jeff, you might like Mega Man from this era because it's like a similar idea, except none of the exploration and map. They're all like individual levels that are themed, like fire, ice, whatever, based on the boss at the end. And then you go through a level, and at the end, it's like a boss fight, and then you get their powers. And while there are sort of like optimal ways to do the levels and that some boss abilities like will be better in other levels than others, it's really like never a required thing. Like you can't not get through one level because you don't have something yet. And that might be more up your alley. I think that's a lot more faster paced, a lot more action oriented, and there is no map. So
yeah. That does sound a lot more appealing to me. Mega Man is another franchise that I've looked at a lot, but I've only ever played like 5 minutes of, but not in the way that I played Metroid Prime and was like, fuck this. Mega Man does seem
Metroid
potentially
Prime
appealing.
was like 8 years after GoldenEye, but had the same fucking controls as GoldenEye, and I would not play that game. I refused.
Well, that's just because the GameCube controller is the worst controller of all time, unless you're playing Smash Bros.
And then it's the only controller.
And I guess like the Halo hadn't come out yet at that point, so maybe consoles hadn't quite figured out their control scheme for shooters. But at that point, I had played Tribes and shit on my computer with a mouse. So the idea of having to hold R to aim, I was not putting up with that. So to this day, I haven't played Prime for that reason. Although I know they've redone it with modern control schemes, so maybe I should check that out.
The way I played Prime was the Prime trilogy on the Wii, and it's actually a great way to play it because the Wii remote acts as like the shooter, so you're just aiming with the Wii remote. So it's like, I know you hate motion controls, but to just point and shoot is like not that difficult, I don't think. So I thought the Wii ports of Metroid Prime were actually really good, and that's how I played all of them, and really enjoyed playing it that way. But they're very similar in the exploration, but very different in the mechanics, obviously.
To bring this kind of back around to the gameplay, there's 2 things I want to talk about here specifically. The first one being just the progression of tools and abilities that you get. I found these at first were like kind of slow and frustrating, and it wanted me to go through way too many segments that weren't just like, oh, you can't get through this door because you don't have this thing yet. It's like you need to play this like it's Mario and just dodge things for like 20 minutes on the way to your download room before you get the thing that makes you not just completely useless for this entire sector. I do feel like
that's like one segment.
I feel like it was every segment in the first 2 hours, but I did really feel that once you got halfway through the game, you really finally get like an arsenal of things where you didn't feel just off. Like I hated the missiles at first. It was just the charge shot, but limited because there was no radius. It was just like rock, paper, scissors, laser. I couldn't stand it. But eventually, it freezes things. Eventually, it gets a bigger blast radius. And it's like, yeah, that's the shit I love. I really don't like when they give me 3 different colors of the same thing, which is what the beginning of this game felt like. But I don't know. How'd you guys feel about that? Did you feel this nice like progression of power as the game went on?
I also thought it was kind of slow, but I preferred the missiles just because like I didn't have to like hold down the B button to hold my charge shot. So the only reason I liked the missiles was from a controls aspect. I also thought that the power ups were slow. I think by the time I got the wide beam, so that, pressing B like actually did a decent number of stuff, I felt like I was equipped and could do things. But yeah, for those first 2 hours, I felt like an absolute bitch being thrown around all the time by these mimicky parasite things. Oh, can we talk about the fact that when you kill an enemy, they turn into like a health drop?
Yes.
But that health drop seems to flee from you arbitrarily.
Adam hated this.
Erratically is, I think, how I described it, yeah.
I don't know who thought that was fun, but like nothing is more demoralizing. Jesus Christ, the number of times they would fly away and then turn into another enemy also.
This probably just has to do more like with nostalgia and more with like I've played this game a bunch, but like it just never really bothered me. And maybe it's because I first played it when I was like 10, and I was just like, that's just how it is. That's what it is. So it never really bothered me.
Parts are worse than others. The area where it's like there's a bunch of water and it's all electrified, and there's like the fish. I thought I was going to quit. So many of those fish, you get half a second before it's just another goddamn fish. And I was losing my mind. And it already was like, and this, we've talked about this too. This might have been that I'm playing it like on my phone emulator with an Xbox controller hooked up, and the controls aren't quite what they're supposed to be. But every time I had to jump out of like plants on the ground, water, anything, I couldn't stand it. It felt like the jump button just stopped working halfway through my jump. It was just awful. But like, man, there were so many of these segments where it's like, I've drained the water. This game's fun again. I have a gravity suit, so I can just be underwater. It's fun again. I did not like a lot of the like initial treks through the sectors. But I felt like the second time you come through the game was just like way, way better because of what you now have access to, I guess.
And I think, right, that's the appeals, maybe not the right word, but like that's the kind of thesis behind Metroid, right?
Yeah.
Is like, I feel like this is with all of them. Is like, we're going to start you off as kind of a lesser being, right? You're not as powerful, you're not as strong. You have to struggle through these areas, and it's going to be a pain, and you're going to have to like be meticulous about how you move and where you go and how you shoot things, and like it's a struggle for a bit. And then when you get that new item, it makes everything before it feel trivial. And then you feel like a super powerhouse and you're like, yeah, look at me crushing all of this. Like, oh, look at how smoothly I can move through the water now that I have the gravity suit. All you fish, fuck you fish. like it spins it on its head and gives you that kind of power fantasy that you struggled before.
I think you're totally right, Austin. I think that's 100% what they're going for. I just think the segments where things become trivial are like too short or are maybe somewhat uninteresting, like in themselves. I felt a lot of times I would get the power up and I would get to relax. And I just felt kind of relieved for a minute. And then I would quickly get to a new area and then be totally bitch slap again and be like, oh, were you having fun? Fuck off. It's time to work again.
I will say that I'm definitely with both of you guys in that the back half of this game feels a lot better than the front half. I was surprised starting it back up because I mean when I did my top 100 games or my top like 100 favorite games list a few years back, I put this at 24. A lot of that is nostalgic thinking, right? Is like I remember loving Metroid Fusion, but hadn't played it in a while. So going back to it, I was surprised initially how much the beginning did not vibe with me. I was like, man, did I rate this too highly? Like, do I like this more, or do I like this a lot less than I thought I did? But I really do think that like as you progress through, it gets a lot better. And I think the back half of the game, going through all those areas with like a full kit, feels a lot better than even I initially thought it does. I was like, oh man, this feels great to go through these areas and defeat these enemies after you have all of your equipment.
The number one thing about this genre that I think is the reason I don't like them is that there's just nothing more annoying to me than taking a wrong turn and then going back into the room that you just spent 45 seconds painstakingly clearing out and everything is just back. That sucks. Like I've been playing the Resident Evil games recently and I get lost a lot and have to go through rooms over and over, but they're like when I kill them, they're dead. That's it. It's just walking back through the level to try to find where I'm supposed to go. Having the enemies respawn back behind you over and over, that never stopped being annoying. The only time it stopped being annoying is when I had all of the weapons and upgrades and I could just clear it in 5 seconds. But like that sucked and that continued to suck for me through all 8 hours of this game.
You're totally right, Adam. And that's another reason why the exploration aspect of, I guess, Metroid generally confuses me so much, is that it immediately erases your progress on a, like, block by block, level, right? Like, every time you go through a door, everything you did in the previous room is wiped away. So why would I want to do that over and over again, trying to, like, experiment and explore and find stuff? I'm just happy I fucking lived, because I only have 3 energy banks. So
I wonder if the modern system of like the Souls-like campfire respawn would actually work really good for these kind of games. You would just like increase the damage that is dealt to you a little bit along the way, but they don't respawn behind you until you use like a rest station. I think that could have been neat. Granted, this was 15 years before that idea popped in anyone's head, so I get it. But
yeah, that actually does make a lot of sense. And I don't know anything about programming for the Game Boy Advanced. I should. I think I literally took a class on it in college. But I don't know.
That's an oddly specific class.
Yeah. C programming, y'all. It's I don't know if it's a limitation of gaming at the time that it's just easier to wipe things clean as opposed to tracking state across these big maps that you can explore. Right?
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
It could be technical limitations. It could also just be design limitations. It's like they don't want to think about like, oh, well, what if you've cleared this room and then you clear that room and then you go back this way? Like, does it make sense? Can you still do this stuff? There are a decent number of puzzles in this game where being able to walk out of a room and walk back into it and have the enemies resets actually made them easier. Right. There's a point where like you have to specifically get some X to absorb into the right enemy or the right hostile thing in order to like build a bridge that you can then run across and like smash through a wall. So they very intentionally like designed this resetting into the game, and I don't know why, but most of the time I just found it frustrating.
The X-Virus thing, yeah, just to come back around on that, not my favorite. I get the idea because I think they just wanted to do something unique with the health drops, because I'm going to assume that it's like Mega Man, Austin, where every time you kill something in the old ones, it was just like health would drop on the ground, or sometimes.
Yeah, that's playing Super Metroid last night. Yeah, it's just when you kill an enemy, it just stays there. It's just the health just stays there. I think the idea, right? I think it's a thematic choice too, to like kind of go with the game. Like it's a living parasite, so it's trying to flee from you. You know, like thematically, narratively, I think it makes sense, and it kind of forces you to like. At least I think it forces you to be active in getting in the combat. Like you have to shoot a thing and then go for the health, as opposed to like clear the whole room from a distance and then go pick up all the health after. Like you have to it forces you to be a little more active and engaged, kill the enemy, go for the health, instead of just like clearing it from a safe distance.
Yeah, it's like it's trying.
Clearly, it didn't work for you guys.
Well, that was the thing.
I think it worked for me.
It's like, no, I think you're right, but it's like I was like, okay, so it wants me to be aggressive, but that just got me killed every time. So I had to kind of find this weird balance. But you're talking about the atmosphere, and maybe that's a good time to segue into that with this last gameplay bit that I think is every bit as much atmosphere, and that's the SAX sequences. Jeff, how did you feel about those overall?
They were interesting. Like they definitely, leaned heavily into this, horror movie type aesthetic that this game is trying to have. Like the game is trying to be cinematic and artful, and like you are exploring this derelict and compromised research lab, and there is a giant monster. Well, not giant, but there is a monster hunting you, something that you have no ability to fight, and your only option when confronted with it is to run for your goddamn life. And I think these sequences worked very well. It's cool that they like spotlight the XIX, which, as far as I can tell, just looks like Samus, right?
Yeah.
And you can always hear the sound in the background, her metallic footsteps, and you're supposed to clue into like when you hear those footsteps, like prepare yourself. It is a while into the game before they actually interact with you at all, that you have to like actively flee from the SAX. And when I finally did, it's sometime shortly after getting like the ice missiles, that there's a not long, but there's a sequence where you have to flee because she is going to fucking murder you. And that felt very well done, except it was extremely difficult for me. I had to do it so many times.
Is it the ones where you have to...
It is a difficult
You have to like freeze her, and there's the doors you have to open by shooting the switches, and you have to like, yeah. And that's tough because she stays frozen for half a second. So you literally have to like spam the missiles, look up, shoot, go back to spamming the missiles, walk a few feet, turn around, spam the missiles.
It's like every frame you're like alternating, like you're going to shoot a missile at her, take one step, shoot a missile at her, like hit the switch, shoot a missile at her, and then if she gets a shot off, like you're fucked. Those things hurt, and there's not necessarily health right before that sequence.
Gosh, dude, the end of that. So at the beginning of that segment, you have to drop a power bomb to blow up a wall. Okay. And then at the end of that segment, you climb in this sort of hole and hide. But I thought maybe you had to drop another power bomb. All that does is show her where you are, and she can shoot through the wall, and you die instantly. And I was so mad because I had finally gotten to the end and then lost at the end. I think that was my second voice note where I'm literally screaming into my phone about how much I hate this fucking game. But no, I'm with you, though. I thought they were well done overall.
Yeah, I probably would have done the same thing, except I had read all 3 paragraphs on the walkthrough about what not to do. So,
yeah, I was trying to avoid the walkthrough when I could, but I definitely ended up with quite a few sequences I had to look up what to do.
I think the SAX is one of the coolest parts of Fusion to me, and is one of the reasons that I think it stuck out so strongly for me, like as a kid and even now into my adulthood. Like I think that is one of the reasons that I think about the game so fondly, is because it does feel so unique compared to other Metroid games. Like all of the Metroid games kind of try to take on a horror aesthetic to a degree, right? Where you're always kind of a solo survivor on an alien planet, and you're trying to make it through this area, but it's never been as direct and as focused as having this like literal alien type monster that's like hunting you throughout the world. And I love the build up to the SAX showing up. Like you see the damage that it causes long before you ever actually see it. Like the computer warns you of like, there's, an X that's infested your power suit, and it's running around through this facility, and as you're backtracking, you're seeing all the damage it's caused, and you're like, oh man, this thing is scary. And then when you first encounter it the first time, like you can't actually engage with it, but just the framing of how they show it to you, you're like kind of above it in this tunnel in morph ball mode, and it's like, oh man, like it just sets this perfect atmosphere and tone to me that really captures something unique with Metroid that had never been done before. And they've done something similar with Metroid Dread, the Switch one that came out a couple years ago. They do something similar with like these like robot characters, and they're cool, but nothing quite as effective as having a literal like alien version of your own power suit hunting you down.
I'm always on board with a game that wants to give you like a mirrored opponent, or even like a more powerful version of yourself. I think that's one of my favorite moments from Guild Wars. Totally different game.
Oh, best mission of all time.
Yeah. yeah. And I love me Water Temple Dark Link. So, the SAX was appealing as an enemy. But, to bring it back to how confused I am by this game, like the SAX is part of the horror film element to this, and the atmospheric and cinematic thing they're going for. But this is a 2D platformer, a shooting 2D platformer. But it's also an exploration game, and it's also a puzzle game, and so it feels like there's a lot going on in this title, and it doesn't mesh together in a way. As cool as the SAX is, I'm just confused why it's there.
I thought it worked well atmospherically, for sure. I could definitely see an argument about how it like wasn't always the most fun gameplay wise, but man, like this game has some really cool atmospheric moments. There's the part where the power to the whole station goes off and everything gets darker and the music gets like real ominous. I thought that was great. They even disabled the save stations during this part, which like my 2025 sensibilities were freaking out. But then I realized I can just save state, thank God. There's the return to Sector 2 where you're underwater, and there's like there's the pretty water graphics over the screen. You have the kelp and the algae coming up. It almost sounds like a Mario underwater soundtrack. Like that was a whole different vibe, and really gave that area kind of its own unique flavor. I really liked that. I kind of wish there was almost more of that, because I felt like I wasn't getting strong thematic feeling through a lot of these different sectors. Like I wish they stood out from each other more, but they did tend to have their individual segments with like the lava here, the electricity here, that kind of came together. So I do think atmosphere is something that this game does very well.
I will say I think this game looks beautiful. Like the graphics and art for a Game Boy Advance game, incredible amount of detail. So yeah, it looks very good. And there was a decent amount of variety in the sectors. Like, that Venus flytrap that just ate me for a full minute was pretty to look at.
I do think that's another one of the big reasons that I always gravitated towards Fusion is I think the Game Boy Advance was a 32-bit system as opposed to the Super Nintendo, which was 16-bit. And I think those extra 16 bits really do a lot of work to make this game look really good. Like, it's a really pretty game to look at. The art and the design and like the thematic approach to all these areas. Like, I actually did find them all very unique, and I felt like they stood out to me a little bit more than a lot of Super's areas. Like, Super feels like kind of the same area, just with like some slight differences throughout. Whereas every sector felt really distinct to me and like had its own art aesthetic that was unique to that area. And I always liked seeing the new areas and the new, spaces, and kind of getting to explore those areas and see what they did with the design.
We're kind of going all over the place here, but what else is new for Games Gone By? Jeff, how did you feel about the boss fights in particular?
The boss fights were probably God, I've already complained a lot, but were a deep struggle for me. I knew I was going to be bad at this game where I died in the very first boss fight against what is obviously like not supposed to be a difficult opponent. And it fucking dominated me. And I was like, I don't really even know what I did wrong. All of these bosses eventually get reduced down to these core X things, which are just these giant spiky balls with an eyeball as like a weak point. And I wasn't even good at jumping over those correctly. Like you shoot them and they shoot out health, but the health runs away from you, so it's hard to get to. And they all have different little traveling patterns, and like their attack is just like fucking sit on your face, right? Because they're a giant spiky ball. And that hurts.
I don't know why, because I feel like it's supposed to be the easiest part of the fight. But every single boss on my first attempt, or not my first attempt, but on some attempt, I would die to that fucking thing. Like I never beat that part of any boss on the first try. I don't know why, because it just doesn't seem like it should be the hard part of the boss fights. But every fucking time, man, it got me. Like,
it definitely doesn't help that like you've lost probably a lot of life to the boss.
Yeah.
So like you're now definitely struggling at the end.
And, they all kind of look the same and they all kind of play the same, but they're also all slightly different. Sometimes the core X's will like shoot lasers, I think. That probably happens like on the later bosses and stuff. And nothing is more insulting than like being relieved and being like, okay, I just need to hit this ball with a missile a few times. I'll be okay. And you forget that, you land the missile shot and then it fires a laser directly at your face and you die. And you're like, thank God for, a save state on the Switch.
When you finally fight the SAX, its version of that just continues to shoot the ice beams that take out an entire energy tank in one hit. Oh my God, dude.
That one I will agree is absolutely brutal.
I save state basically right after I ended the second phase of SAX and went into that part. And I only had maybe 2 energy tanks left. And it took me like 30 minutes just to beat that. But I wasn't going to do the whole damn fight again. So I kept loading right at that third phase and just I was like, eventually I'll get this. And eventually I did. But oh my God, that was brutal. I love that fight overall.
Oh, no,
but that little glowy thing at the end, I hated that every time.
Mm-hmm. I fought through that fight no save state, and it is brutal.
I bet.
Like it is the hardest fight in the game for sure, which is cool that it's the final fight, and like the final fight happens to be the hardest fight a lot of times. And technically there is like a set piece fight at the end of the game which is a lot easier, but I consider that the final boss, and I think it's a very appropriate final boss.
Maybe now's a good time to talk about some of the narrative stuff, because Austin, explain to me what's going on here. So you have what? Samus's original suit got infected by a virus, so she had to take it off, and then the virus ran away with it?
Basically, yeah, so they go to, at the end of Super Metroid, which is, I think, supposed to be the game before this at the time. Like, at the time that Super Metroid was the last game. The baby Metroid, sacrifices itself to help you fight Mother Brain or whatever. And then you fly away from the planet and you get infected with the virus. Like, Samus gets infected herself with the X virus. They remove the suit, and that's why she has the fusion suit. It's like the fusion suit is, I think, part of the X parasite, but they use Metroids to stabilize the parasite in Samus. Like they use like a Metroid vaccine or cure or something to stabilize Samus. And that's why she has the fusion suit. That's why she's weak to ice, because the Metroids are weak to ice. So that's why she has the ice weakness, and why the SAX can absolutely
just
obliterate you with the ice beam.
Okay. So what happens at the very end that makes it want to come save you after you've beaten it? I just did not understand that.
Yeah. I can't even argue with that one. I'm not 100% sure either why that happens.
Fair enough.
I know you steer the ship into the planet to destroy the X virus. I'm not sure why the SAX decides that it wants to help you in that moment.
You find out the Federation wants to do some experiments with the X virus, right? And Adam is basically telling you, like, yeah, we need to wait for the Federation to get here. But you end up, like, convincing your chat GPT here that it should not just do that. And it should instead help you destroy the space station. And it's like, yeah, why bother blowing it up? They might still live. You should actually, like, crash it into the atmosphere of this nearby planet. Real quick change for Adam there.
I think the idea maybe there is that they wouldn't be able to survive the atmosphere. Yeah. I think that ends up becoming not true anyway, because I think in a later Metroid game they actually do escape.
I'm sure.
And there's like a rogue X on a different planet. I think that's the premise of Dread, maybe. I don't remember the story in Metroid Dread, but I do know that it does get a little confusing there at the end with the plot. I think the main beat is you're trying to blow up the X by sending the space station careening into, I think it's SR388, which is the Metroid planet, is what it's hovering over. So you send it careening into that planet, and I guess the SAX is like, I don't know, you're cool, Samus, go survive. I did not pick up on why that happened either. I thought that was strange in that last
Do you know what that last boss even is?
That is I think it's an Omega Metroid.
Okay.
It's like some sort of like evolved Metroid.
But I thought all the Metroids
that I guess
were
they were
dead now. No. Oh, that's right. You actually run into that at the end of the game with the SAX suit is in that Metroid.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So I think that's like I think that's a Metroid that was maybe like morphed by the X virus.
Oh, yeah, because Adam starts yelling at you and is like, you weren't supposed to go down there, Samus. He calls you lady, and it's weird. He's like, you weren't supposed to go down there, lady. That was bad. You disobeyed orders. You should know about that. Anyway, let's crash the planet.
I think I do wonder if that's because Samus kind of is manifesting some of her knowledge of old Adam into that Adam, because that's what her commanding officer called her. Like, Adam the human
called her lady.
Okay. So I wonder if that's supposed to, like, indicate that. Like, he's picked up on some of those things that Samus, had attributed to the real Adam.
Is the computer a bad guy?
Like, no, I don't think so, right? It's working for the Federation, which seems to, over time, be revealed as an organization that, like, you can't trust as much as you thought you could have, maybe?
Yeah, I think so Samus has always been kind of like a space bounty hunter. I think that's worked with the Federation in the past, but is not a part of the Federation. And I think the Federation has its own goals, but is generally considered like a positive force in the galaxy, but one that still has like its own fair share of corruption and things. And I think in this particular instance, they were trying to use Metroid experimentation, and that is a bad thing for Samus because the Metroids are dangerous. And then they wanted to experiment with the X, which Samus is like, no, stop experimenting with deadly things. Like,
I keep ending up in the same circumstance every game because you fuckers won't stop running experiments.
I have to keep going back and fighting you assholes because you keep running experiments on things. I think that's a big part of like Other M as well. The Federation is involved in doing some more experimentation, and Samus gets screwed over by it.
I was just at the beginning pretty convinced that there was going to be some kind of twist where you, the player character, were the alien reconstructing Samus, and your Samus suit hunting you was actually the real Samus trying to end your blight upon the station or whatever. But then that didn't happen, and I'm probably okay with that. I guess props to them.
That could have been interesting, but no, that is not. That
is not at all what happens.
How it pans out. I didn't really get to talk much about the bosses besides the SAX. I do think this game does have some of the weaker bosses in Metroid. Like, I think Super is kind of the gold standard for a lot of things Metroid, but I also think bosses in particular, and I don't think this game quite gets up to those levels. I thought like the water snake boss was okay. I liked Ridley at the end. I like the SAX. I like Nightmare. Like, I think the in-game bosses are a lot more appealing because you have your full kit and have like multiple ways to deal with them, and you have a lot more life, so you can sustain longer. And like, I just think, in a lot of ways, this game gets better as it goes, and I think the bosses are also indicative of that. Like, this game, late game bosses are a lot more interesting than early game bosses.
How did you feel about the spider?
Spider was infuriating at first. It's one of the only.
Was it like the mechanical spider? Is that what
no, the one that like. Are you talking about the one that like that actually looks like a spider, right? It like grabs you and it like sucks your life away.
Oh, why can't I remember that?
From that one was infuriating for me at first until I remembered how to fight it. And then I started to get it. It's like you really just have to hide in the corner in morph ball mode so it doesn't pick you up until you're ready to shoot it at its face.
Yes, I remember this now. Okay. The bosses in general could definitely be difficult. And part of it was for me was that like I felt like I never quite got a hang of the controls to need the reflexes that you needed to dodge some of these attacks. Like, Jeff, you were mentioning dying to the first boss and you didn't know what you did wrong. I beat it and I don't know what I did right. Like, I felt like I just tanked it. I don't think I ever dodged one of its fucking attacks. I just tanked it with my life meter. And a lot of the bosses, like, don't let you do that. So it was really a struggle with how quickly they come on the screen and how limited your view is. And like, especially that snake. I hated that thing because I felt like I could never get a feel for, like, am I jumping? Am I dodging? Am I going into a morph ball? Am I trying to just shoot down and end up morph balling instead, which happened every freaking time I tried to duck in this game?
Yep.
Yeah, the controls, like, I felt like let me down at times, but I did eventually sort of figure out their quirks, with the one exception being space jump, which is just one of the worst things I've ever experienced in a video game.
we could talk about space jump in a second.
I like space jump. I like space jump. Even in this game, I like space jump.
Austin, tell me how. I don't understand how it works.
What part of it doesn't suck miserably? Which aspect?
When do I press the jump button again? I don't understand.
It's just a feel thing, man. I don't know.
What the fuck? What do you mean?
It's like you can only do it on your way back down, but you also have to hit it first to go into somersault mode, or else you'll just fall back down normally. And falling off of a cliff, it was easy to time this because you're falling anyway. But like starting from the ground, oh my God, dude, that one room where you have to climb like through this whole vertical hallway and there's all these enemies there. I thought I was going to quit.
I will say it gets a lot better once you get screw attack and can just power through enemies.
Oh yeah, it's trivial when you get screw attack, but that 45 minutes in between was hell.
I did not find it that bad, but
this is the part where I can point out that I didn't even finish the game. I gave up on the Nightmare boss, which is like one of the bosses where having the space jump is, supposed to give you the movement to dodge him. And I just physically couldn't do it. I fought that boss for an hour and then was like, all right, I'm tapping out. I'm done.
It's probably a good thing.
Nightmare is one of the trickier bosses.
It's a good thing you didn't get to the SAX encounter then, because it's you have to be space jumping the entire time, basically.
SAX is really tough. It's a hard fight. It was a very appropriately challenging fight, I think, for that point in the game, but it is tough.
I think, Adam, you really hit it, though, that like the way these bosses are designed is that it seems like there's a certain way you're supposed to control Samus that you should just be able to do, right? Like you need to be able to like jump and turn into a ball and fire a missile, all with precise timing. And I just, I don't, maybe it's the Joy-Cons on the Switch, but it doesn't feel physically possible to me. Like I was in pain playing some of this game.
I would never play this game with an analog stick, so I do think that could be part of your problem.
Yeah, I did have to switch to the D-pad, and then the Joy-Con D-pad is ass because it's just buttons, right? It's not a D-pad.
The Joy-Con D-pad sucks. The Switch 2 Joy-Con D-pad is the buttons are a little bit closer together. They're still individual buttons, but they feel a little like tighter. Mm-hmm. So I played a lot of it on the Switch Pro controller. And that felt pretty good. I imagine the Xbox controller D-pad felt pretty similar.
Yeah, I had to switch to the D-pad after a certain point, and that definitely improved things.
Yeah, and all right, it's worth mentioning and obviously, like, we've made it obvious by this point, but none of us are playing this on the Game Boy Advance. Like,
which didn't have an analog stick,
this on,
it only had a D-pad. So,
Right. None of us are playing this on its native hardware that, like, is probably supposed to be played on, so that definitely could have an effect on things. But I will say the like, hour to 2 hours that I played of Super Metroid last night and this morning, I definitely prefer the, like, pace of the action to Fusion than I did to Super. Like, the fact that there's a ledge grab in this game is just... I was like, immediately went into Super. I was like, come on, no ledge grab? Like...
It took me a bit to figure out that you could grab a ledge and then pull yourself as a ball into small spots, and I kept trying to just jump up to those as a ball. And also, I was remembering from Super Metroid where you can chain your power ball jumps together. In this one, it does not work like that. If you hit a bomb in midair, nothing happens. It only makes you jump off the ground. Yeah. And I think there's like one part in this entire game where you have to do that. At least in a story way. Maybe there's a bunch of hidden segments, maybe the other 51% of the items I didn't find, 61%,
61
are behind
51
ball jumps that I didn't find. But.
Yeah, when I was reading the Omega Metroid guide, the first chapter I actually read, he talked about like, and this is missile bank upgrade number 16. And I was like, 16?
Right.
I've seen 3.
The guide was good at showing you where all of the bonus stuff was, but I got to a point at the end where I just would skip over entire paragraphs because I'm like, I just don't think I need more than 120 missiles, and if I do, I should probably just stop playing. So,
I mean, honestly, yeah, I had so many missiles. What I needed was some goddamn health, so I read all the energy tank ones.
And that's, I think energy tanks are probably the most... I ended up with 10 energy tanks by the end. I don't know if that's the max or not.
Me either. I had 9, so I wasn't too far behind.
Yeah, I think I had 10.
It is not. There are at least 14 energy tanks and probably more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
which...
Yeah, holy shit. You can get two bars worth. There might be 20.
20
so I think
still wouldn't be enough for SAX, though. Like, you have to figure out how to dodge that shit. Like, you just have to.
SAX is a really brutal fight, but I did enjoy it. I struggled with it for a while. I was like, am I ever going to beat this thing? But I eventually figured it out.
That was me on like boss 3. So I have been defeated by this game.
So yeah, I guess overall I would say that despite not being a fan of this subgenre very much, and this game not changing my mind, it does still feel like it was pretty solid. Like, I think if I was into these games, I would like this one a lot. It does seem to do a lot of things right. I really liked the non-gameplay parts of it a lot. Even if sometimes the gameplay was annoying, but like I still had good times. That middle section, there was a good 2 hours there where I was just having such a blast because I felt like the boss battles hadn't become so hard yet, and I'd finally gotten more than just a missile. So yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people's mileage may vary on this one, but I think if you're into these kind of games, just based on the general reception critically and audience-wise, this is a good entry into the Castlevania or the Metroidvania subgenre.
Yeah, it's definitely a good game. Now, it's such a good game that it has completely defeated me. Maybe question my worldview of like, am I good at video games? Do I like video games? Like, am I a Nintendo fan? So I am definitely defeated and demoralized. But nothing about this game made me think like, oh, why would they ever do this? Or this is obviously nonsense. It seems like a good sequel entry in a franchise that is exciting to some people. It is just definitively not for me. And maybe if you want to try it out, maybe go dig up a Game Boy Advanced. I'm not sure.
I came into this thinking like I'm going to love this because I love Metroid Fusion and I love Metroid. And I did. I did love it. It's still one of my favorite games. But I will say that I was surprised, especially in the beginning, how much I didn't immediately love it. I think my nostalgia was kind of clouding my view on it a little bit. And I think in hindsight, is Super Metroid maybe a better game? Because I've always been definitively of the stance of like, I think Fusion is the better game. I like Fusion. People don't talk about Fusion enough. After playing Fusion, I'm like, maybe Super Metroid is the better game after all. But I think I will always love Fusion for a lot of the reasons that I described here, with just I like the art more, I like the atmosphere more, I think the action is a bit tighter. But would I say it's my 24th favorite game of all time now? Maybe not. I might, in the future, it might drop a few spots because I don't think it holds up quite as well, but I still love this game. I still love Metroid, and I'm glad we played it here.
And that about wraps up our discussion on the 2002 action platformer Metroid Fusion.
You can find this episode, as well as all of our other episodes, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, or
our brand new website, gamesgoneby.com, where you can listen to every episode, read Austin's movie reviews, or check out our blog post.
And you can still find us on the social media at the Games Gone By podcast.
Signing off for Games Gone By, I'm Adam.
I'm Austin.
And I'm going to go hump some walls.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Ooh.